Recording now.
Great, thank you.
All right. Welcome everyone, our small group, and yeah, just welcome to the Students of Color Mentorship Program. We're super excited that you're joining us today, and we sincerely appreciate your willingness to seek out this resource. I know it's been a while since I graduated from my undergrad, but I know I really would have appreciated this opportunity myself. Um, so for those of you that are joining us today, my name is Omar. I'm a second year doctoral student at the University of Connecticut studying education policy, and I'll be helping facilitate today's session. In a few moments, I'll be sharing 4 links with you that you'll find useful to both not only today, but also as you progress in your journey with us. And if you have any questions, concerns, or tech issues, just drop them in the chat or send me a direct message. And with that said, I'd like to pass the virtual mic over to Lauren Donais, who will be sharing more information with you today. So take it away.
Thank you, Omar, and welcome again, Jennifer and Andy. It's really nice to be with you. Again, my name is Lauren Donais, she, her, hers, and I am the Title IX Program and Training Specialist in the Office of Institutional Equity. So in my current role, I design and deliver training and education related to the university's policy against discrimination, harassment, and related interpersonal violence. But one of the reasons John invited me to lead this session is previously I engaged in quite a bit of student development work in my previous role at the Women's Center. I recruited, trained, and supervised peer facilitators who, as you all may know, lead workshops really designed to inspire critical thinking around the relationship between normative gender expectations, patterns of communication, and the influence of power imbalances or asymmetries. So I was doing that in that role for about 6 years. Prior to that, I was in a similar role at Trinity College in Hartford for about 5. So, all of my work has really helped me to develop a strong analysis of power that's really informed by a commitment to working towards social equity and justice. So I'm really excited and honored to be leading you all in this discussion today around the power dynamics inherent in mentoring relationships. So, this, in an effort to keep this as engaging as is possible via a virtual platform, I wanted to start by asking you to think about, when you think about power, the word power, in 1 or 2 words or more, because there's only 2 of you, and Omar, feel free to participate as well. What comes to mind? And you can enter your answers through this Poll Everywhere application. You don't have to download anything. You can either text your response to the number 37607, and your text message is UConn Title IX in Roman numerals, all one word, all caps. Or you can enter your answer through a web browser. So you would just enter the URL that you see at the top of the screen if you prefer to access the poll that way. So take a moment and really reflect on your word associations. How do you conceptualize power? And if you're having issues, if you're having trouble with the poll, feel free to drop your responses in the chat box, or you're certainly welcome to come off your mute, your audio mute. Okay, leader. Great. Hierarchies. Mm. What else? Or even if you want to expand to power dynamics or power relationships, what comes to mind? Influence and control. Mm. Yeah, these are some really good ones. Voice. I like that. Confidence. Mm. So I think we often expect those in positions of power who are leading, who have a voice, who have influence, right? That they often got there due to competence. Any others? These are really good. Yes, responsibility. The expression I'm sure we're all familiar with great power comes great responsibility, right? Absolutely. Yeah, so I appreciate you engaging in this word cloud development. Um, as I think about this past year plus, when I was sort of doing this thought exercise with myself, I think for me, there were more sort of bleak or ominous word associations. And I think um, in large part that is due to the abuses of power that have really been brought to light since the resurgence of the Me Too movement in 2017. I think about the ongoing state-sanctioned violence and racial terror against Black folks in our country and abroad. Um, and really just the far too many abuses of institutional power responsible for the systems of oppression that are so deeply woven into the very foundation of American culture. Um, so, I we're gonna sort of unpack that a little bit more. But want I want to begin by making some distinctions around like formal organizational power versus informal power before we really jump into the power dynamics and how those dynamics may show up in your relationships with your mentors. So most of us are pretty clearly understand formal organizational power. Those of you, Andy and Jennifer, if you've ever had a job, you know that your manager, your supervisor has power over you and that they in many ways control your pay, your performance evaluation, your job security. I'm sure, fully understand that faculty, your professors have power over you, and that they control your grades. Staff, if you're involved, if you work with any staff on campus, they often have some power in terms of your co-curricular success. So, when we think about mentors, mentors have sort of this intrinsic power over their mentees by virtue of this role that they are stepping into. So your mentors control, in many ways, may control access to some opportunities for you, your development, your professional development, your networks, resources. You likely want to be in a relationship with your mentor or mentors because they represent something to which you may aspire. You likely want to learn from your mentors. You likely want their feedback and encouragement. And intended or not, you may even start to shape, adopt some of their behaviors or even their philosophies. So, mentoring is, and I'll say this to your mentors who I work with in the next session, is really an opportunity to grow and develop another person, and that being you all, and really to speak into your lives in meaningful and powerful ways. But as we talked about in our word cloud, it is also a big responsibility, and one that is not to be taken lightly. So in terms of the more sort of informal abuses of power, they can be more insidious or less tangible. So some examples of this are, again, if you've ever worked, you probably felt, being new to any job, that your coworkers who had worked wherever you were working longer than you may have been assigned or perceived to have more power over you, simply due to their seniority, even if you were serving in the same exact role. Maybe you've had coworkers that were regarded as really high performing employees, and they were perhaps assigned or perceived to have more power than you or other counterparts, just due to their reputation. And unfortunately, when implicit bias is unchecked or prejudice is at play, an individual who's a member of a dominant social group may be assigned more informal power than an individual who is a member of a historically marginalized group. So while all mentors and mentees hold minoritized, racialized identities, informal power dynamics may take shape for perhaps cross-gender pairings, as well as among other social identities like sexual orientation, national origin, age, etc. Okay, so I wanted to share this quote that I really love. And, I talked just a moment ago about Me Too. I was not too long ago reading a piece that the creator of the Me Too movement, Tarana Burke, who's pictured here, was quoted in. And she was talking about how, in a lot of ways, the movement has been a bit misrepresented. And she says that we have to re-educate ourselves and our children to understand that power and privilege doesn't always have to destroy and take. It can be used to serve and build. And, really, your mentors have worked hard to earn their formal power within their organizations, within their industries, and are setting out to serve you all as mentees, build you up, prepare you for success in your future workplaces. Um, and so I'm again just really thrilled to be part of the training for this program. This is something that I often sit with and think about how I use my own power and privilege as a straight white cis woman. And so I'm really heartened to see so many alumni um, who is certainly with less privilege, racialized privilege than myself, um, take on this leadership role, this mentor role, um, to really do the work of building and serving you all as students. So, um, that we are now going to apply this sort of power analysis to a couple of case scenarios. And here, again, I'm going to ask that you all, we won't use polls here, but I am gonna strongly encourage and invite you all to work through some discussion questions. Um, After I present you with the scenario, I'll read the scenario out loud, and then in the chat box, I will drop the discussion questions, give you a couple minutes to think through them, and then we'll hopefully be able to dialogue around them. Okay, so our scenario goes as follows. Eric is Nia's primary mentor, and they have cultivated a mutually enriching relationship. They meet online weekly and exchange emails as needed. Nia's one frustration with Eric is that he often makes last-minute changes to the day and time of their meetings due to childcare responsibilities. Nia thrives on a regimented routine, but tries to be patient with Eric, knowing that he must watch his son when his partner cannot. During Eric and Nia's mid-year check-in, Nia expressed her preference to keep their online meetings at the set time they had previously agreed to. Eric agreed to lock in the day and time for their weekly check-in, even though that is when he watches his son Willie. Because of that, Willie routinely sits with Eric on the video calls and always wants to talk to Nia. The two develop a bond, and at Christmas, Nia surprises Eric by sending Willie a Christmas present. So, as you think about, let's see if this drops in. So I just dropped in the chat the discussion questions, and I want you to think a bit about what we've discussed already around both formal power and informal power as you work through and reflect on these discussion questions. So I'll give you a couple minutes. And if Andy and Jennifer, if you could just confirm, you can use if you are familiar with the reactions on WebEx, you can just do sort of like a thumbs up to make sure. I just want to make sure you can see the discussion questions in the chat. Awesome. Thank you both. So actually, for those who will be listening to the recording, I'm not sure if the chat box translates to the recording, so I will read the questions out loud. The first is, are there boundary issues present in this scenario? If so, what are they and who are they impacting? Could the boundary issues have been avoided? If so, how? If not, why not? How should Eric handle receiving the as present for Willie? Why? And would a present from Willie to Nia be more or less appropriate? Oh, and I sort of accidentally put the answer in there. Oops. So Jennifer and Andy, whenever you're ready, feel free to jump off your mute. And we don't have to go in order. You can respond to any or all of these, but jump in wherever you are most comfortable. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
So right now I'm giving everyone some time to work through some discussion questions related to the scenario that you should see up on the slide. I will drop them because you're just logging in. You probably can't see what's already been put in the chat. So I'm going to drop them there again so you can see them.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And once you feel ready to respond to any of these questions, I am inviting you to share your reflections. And you can start with the first one, you can start anywhere.
All right.
You start talking.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I was thinking, I was to answer the first part of the question. Um, are there boundary issues in the scenario? Yeah, I think Nina is more impacted. I think um, being a mentee or being someone who's under someone who has authority over you or seems that way, you feel less inclined to speak your mind and say how you feel about a particular situation. um, and because you don't know how it's going to turn out one way or another, especially being that he's male and she's female, there's also that dynamic that they may think there's some retaliation. As far as the gift, that may be received as somebody crossing the line also, um, and don't know what should be done about it. Probably should not have been done, but maybe, maybe there's a little bit more going on in the conversation, or it may seem that way, even if it's not.
Sorry, could you say that last part again right before you said it might seem one way,
It,
even if it's not?
it may seem it seems inappropriate. That maybe the conversation that they may have had, or even with the child at the time with Willie, may have been inappropriate,
Mm,
even if it wasn't. But the time for Nina and Eric, yeah, Eric should have been set aside for them and Willie shouldn't have been involved at all.
Right. Right. Yeah, thank you for those insights, Andy. I think you really spoke to both the formal power that, Eric has as the mentor over Nia. Then you also spoke to perhaps some of the gendered power as, Eric, we're sort of tagging him here. I think I use he, him pronouns for Eric. So most of us assume that Eric identifies as a man, right? And so Eric um, being, his sort of his gender identity group being male, um, that's the dominant identity group, whereas Nia, we likely tagged as a woman. Um, and then you did talk about how it probably was inappropriate for Nia to buy Willie a gift, but we don't, there's only so much information that we have here, right? We know that from this scenario, from the description, the limited information we have, that Willie wants to talk to Nia when they're having Eric and Nia are meeting, but we don't know exactly what those talks look like. And perhaps it's possible, again, considering all of the power dynamics, when you look at this hypothetical in its entirety, perhaps Nia may have felt like this was a polite thing to do, given she has spent so much time with Willie. Other thoughts on any of the things that anyone want to respond to Andy's
I can respond as well.
Great.
I agree with Andy as well, because some of the uh a lot of the things could have been avoided, because if he did build a set schedule, if Eric did build a set schedule for Nina and didn't stick by it, I'll say that's on Eric's part of his mistakes. So he needs to take accountability for that. And
Mm,
even if you do have a child and you do set boundaries for yourself and respected time to mentor someone, you shouldn't try to mix up your time with someone else's time that they find important as well. And matter of
right.
fact, look, I'm just gonna skip ahead and
Sure.
gift exchanging part.
Yeah.
I can mix it in the part with Willie as well. He shouldn't have been in the meetings in general. That's a bit too not even a bit. That really is too personal. Because he's interfering with the conversations that could be handled and that could really be important.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, the gifts shouldn't have, yeah, and it's a part of the rule that should be told, like you can't
Oh, I'm
gifts.
sorry, you
And
broke up a
she's
little
sending a
bit.
oh, oh, I'm sorry. I said she like the gift exchange that shouldn't have
Yeah.
happened, because that's everyone that's been spoken about. And that also, like, especially if it's since it's a pandemic, or if we're, let's say there's no pandemic, how did she get his address? So that shouldn't.
Mm, good
Yeah.
point. Very good point. Yeah. Yeah. So you all really spoke to so many of the elements, so many of the issues of concern here. Really appreciate your engagement around this. So just to, clarify some things before we move on to the next scenario. In your handbook, and it sounds like some of you have already familiarized yourself with the handbook. Um, they're on page, I think it's page 9 of 11, if you have it, accessible, the electronic copy. There's a breakdown of expectations around boundaries, amorous relationships or romantic relationships. Here, we don't necessarily have a reason to believe that there is a romantic relationship or a romantic interest here, but still want to encourage you to give that a look, as well as expectations around gift giving and receiving. So if you have not looked at that page of the handbook already, I want to encourage you to do that. But one of the things talked about in there around boundaries is, building a natural rapport between, in both directions is, both really necessary and important to the relationship, but we definitely want to encourage both parties to be mindful that conversations should pertain to relevant topics about professional and academic development, and that folks are using their time, the allotted mentorship time, to productively. So, it's one thing for Willie to make an occasional appearance, right? Those I don't have any little ones, but a lot of my coworkers do. So it has not been unusual since working from home for the past year and a half, where I've gotten to meet a lot of my coworkers or colleagues' little ones. And so I think it's one thing to see them occasionally, to do a quick hello. It's quite another if long periods of time are being dedicated to Willie and Nia talking back and forth, right? And I think Andy, I believe you were the one to speak to like Eric. How could this have been avoided? Eric should have ideally tried to avoid agreeing to a time where he knew he'd be watching Willie by himself. And as soon as he realized he'd be having, this routine conflict due to childcare, he should have formally addressed it with Nia to see if they could settle on a different time that was ideal for both of them. And then how should Eric handle receiving the present that Nia sent for Willie? Eric really should return the gift. As while it was not directly gifted to Eric, Willie, as Eric's kid, is an extension of Eric, and it could really complicate the nature of the mentor-mentee relationship. And then, finally, the same rules really apply in terms of if Eric had sent Nia a gift from Willie, that would certainly be really inappropriate. So that is strongly discouraged as well. Any questions about any of this? Another note in the handbook under money and gifts is, for mentees especially, it may be tempting to accept if your mentor is offering monetary gifts, especially during tough economic times. It might be tempting to accept it, but we want to make sure you all know, if you are experiencing any financial hardship during being part of this mentorship program, you can reach out to Omar or Janelle, who is sort of in the background of today's training, and you have her contact information in the handbook. And they can really help direct you to university resources to assist with that. Okay, so our next scenario, again, I will read it out loud and then drop in the chat box the discussion questions for this one before we talk about them. Okay, Kiara is Han's primary mentor. Kiara struggles to connect with Han, who often averts his eyes and responds to her questions with one-word answers. After a while, Kiara begins approaching their video calls with an immediate dive into goal setting. but would always end their time together with the same message. I'm here to support you, Han. I remember the many challenges of college life, both in and outside the classroom, like it was yesterday. Please know you're not alone. Over the next few meetings, Kiara noticed Han withdrawing incrementally. While Han was initially enthusiastic about setting SMART goals, Kiara perceives a lack of motivation in his follow-through. After a couple months of this pattern, Kiara started canceling meetings thinking Han may not be interested. After a couple months of very few meetings, Kiara expresses her concerns directly to Han. At this point, Han opens up about personal pressures that are interfering with his sleep and productivity. He adds that his mental health became especially compromised after one of his professors started making Asian American COVID jokes at his expense. So, some of our discussion questions here are a little bit different. Some you may recognize, but I am dropping them now in the chat. So here we can even just start with like, what do you make of this scenario? How did reading this, sort of taking this in, what was that like for you? Then we can talk about if there were any boundary issues. We can talk about the power dynamics. And then, so, and again, this question I'm going to work through these scenarios with the mentors, but it's probably not a bad idea for you all to know, how your mentor might, if you were in a position like Han, how your mentor like Kiara might respond to this information that was shared with her. And then while you all aren't mentors, perhaps someday you all will be on the other end serving as mentors. But if Kiara was your mentor, do you wish she would have done anything differently, again, if you were in Han's shoes?
Can I answer the how should Kiara handle his disclosure?
Absolutely.
After reading she started canceling meetings. I feel like she shouldn't have because like even though Han hasn't said anything, like you don't know what's going on with him. Like she still should have made meetings to continue talking to him, and then he might say something out loud. Like because sometimes it's hard to open up like how you're feeling, and mental health is kind of like a issue that people deal with. So it's kind of like hard to to speak up. So I think like Kiara should have still continued having the meetings, and Han would have a chance to speak up.
Absolutely. Thank you for contributing that, Jennifer. Yeah, for any of us who have struggled with mental health challenges, it's certainly not an easy thing to share. And I think we may be more likely to share it the more comfortable we feel with someone. But even still, those that we might be most comfortable with, we still may not always feel ready or capable of sharing if we're really struggling. So yeah, that I would imagine you're not alone, Jennifer, in hoping or wishing that if Kiara was your mentor, and you were in Han's shoes, that she might have maybe expressed her concerns directly to Han sooner, before she started to cancel the meetings, right? Because she did eventually express her concerns to him, but only after those meetings were canceled. Other
I can
thoughts?
offer. I'd like
Um,
to add something. I agree with what she said, and you also. I think this goes back to here is power. And one of the words we use for power is responsibility.
Mm,
Um, uh, Kiara is in a role of power in this, it appears to me. So she has more responsibility to say, to either keep keep his motivation, to keep him focused, or at least find out what's going on. She doesn't have to ask him, but don't cancel the meetings on him, because now, on top of all the rejection he's feeling from, that she wasn't aware of, obviously, but her canceling the meetings is can contribute to his mental health without knowing, So I think she
absolutely.
should have continued to be there in the role that she was assigned, unless he withdrew. And then maybe even still reach out and say, I'm trying to get you going on the right track. Is there any reason why you're off? Anything that I can help you with, or you need express or something? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if what she's supposed to do with that. Maybe at least, maybe nothing, but at least maybe point him in the right direction. Maybe he didn't know who he could uh, present the information to, or who, to because I know he feels if this professor is making these jokes, he can't go to his professor, so who would he go to? And I guess maybe looking for some place to go to express that, or at least complain.
Right.
Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we know, I think it's safe to assume he's already not feeling I think it's safe to assume like emotionally safe in this class where his professor is making these jokes, these racist jokes at his expense. And so potentially these meetings being canceled just further kind of reinforce his feelings of just not belonging, not feeling supported. So in terms of how we'll make sure, we want to advise your mentors around how best to handle disclosures like this. One of the things that we'll share with them is that we want to encourage Kiara to contact Janelle, who you can now see. She came off her camera, um, who can really will be able to support Kiara in determining how best to proceed with making referrals to Han, both in terms of emotional support. So perhaps he may be referred to student health and wellness, mental health services. There may potentially be a care team referral. And then Han may also want to learn more about what his reporting options are related to what's going on in his classroom. So if he was interested in filing a report related to discrimination on the basis of race. My office, actually, again, the Office of Institutional Equity is the office that he could report to, given that his professor is the one sort of being named in this report as potentially having violated the policy against discrimination, harassment, and related interpersonal violence. Janelle may also work with Kiara and Han to think through perhaps filing a bias incident report or just better understanding what the bias incident reporting channel entails. So I think I did just one other thing. Did anyone else want to weigh in here related to any of these questions?
I actually had a sibling who kind of dealt with mental health in high school, so that's why I kind of understood like what's going on here. She kind of didn't want to talk about what she was going through high school to her therapist, and then like after more meetings, she started opening up like her problems and like what was happening.
Mm.
So that's why I was kind of like knowing the situation, like what Han was going through and Kiara.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us, Jennifer. It sounds like this really hits close to home for you and perhaps many of us, right? Either um, we may directly, as I said before, struggle with mental health challenges, and we likely have people that we um, love and care about in our lives who have. Um, so I think in the interest of time, I I did want to make another note about the mentee reference. I want to refer you back to the handbook. So on page 6 of the electronic copy of the handbook, there's a note about if a mentee relationship, if a relationship between a mentee and a mentor just isn't working out. It sounds like they actually were able to work through this sort of some of the misperceptions that were showing up in this scenario. But some things may get in the way of a successful relationship, including time commitments, learning styles, personality, and really just a host of other factors. So in the event that a relationship you find it's not working for you, if for any reason, again, you can reach out to Janelle to communicate that to her, and she or someone else affiliated with the program would be able to offer some guidance and intervention as needed. And finally, this is the last slide. I want to make sure we spend a moment talking about resources, which I touched on a little bit a moment ago. You all know by now, Janelle is really just a great resource for you all. Whatever your issue may be, or even if you don't have an issue, maybe you're loving your mentor and everything is going great. I'm sure she'd love to hear about that too. But if any of the things, any of the issues we spotted today in these scenarios or other issues that we weren't able to cover are coming up, want to make sure that the Dean of Students office is a resource that is available to all of you. We talked already a bit about perhaps getting plugged in over at Student Health and Wellness Mental Health Services if you are struggling with your mental health. And then, related to any matters of bias or discrimination or harassment, really any types of misconduct, because there are so many different offices across the university system, and that really manage these things, be it between or across students, staff, faculty, third parties like your mentors who are alumni. The university recently developed this system-wide reporting hub, which you see in the upper right corner here, inform.uconn.edu. So if you access that website, and again, you can find that link, I believe on the very last page of the handbook, that web page will list all the university reporting options in one central place. There's a form finder tool to help you find the best report for your situation. You can also find a list of support resources. There's a full list there and a breakdown of the services that they provide. And once you submit a report, whichever office has jurisdiction over that area will likely follow up to provide support, resources, and reporting options depending on your relationship to the incident. So you can use this reporting form even if whether you're self-reporting or reporting on behalf of someone else as well. So we are at time here. Any quick questions I can answer for anyone before I have to move over to train your mentors? Emmanuel, I don't know. I heard you start to speak, but then it might have cut off.
Someone else is speaking if she's muted, but she's part of
Oh, yeah. John L, I think, is speaking on the other platform. Did you have any questions or comments? Feedback?
So I understood what was going on. So, and everyone was saying what I was gonna say. So
Great. Well, it was great I really appreciate hearing from all of you. I know these small groups in some ways can be especially intimidating. So I really, really appreciate all of you engaging and thinking really thoughtfully about these pretty complex scenarios. So I wish you all the very best in the program. And that's all for me, but the last thing I'll do before I jump off and turn it over to Nancy is I just dropped my direct email in the chat. So if any questions do come up for you that you feel more comfortable asking privately, feel free to email me, whether they're questions, concerns, or just general feedback. All of it is welcome. Thank you so much.
Everybody, I'm really excited to be here. My name is Nancy Bilmes, and I'm the director at the Center for Career Development. Have any of you used the Center for Career Development yet as undergraduates?
yeah, I use it a lot. Honestly, I used it every year during the summer.
Okay, awesome.
I should, and I apologize for that. Hopefully, you'll see more of me.
No apologies at all. Hopefully, I'll share some information that will entice you to go and seek out advice. How about you, Jennifer?
I think I got my resume done
Yep.
to get an internship with the career development. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So we're collaborating with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion to help out with this Student of Color Mentor Program. And so I'm going to be talking to you about informational interviews. Have any of you done an informational interview before or know what it is?
I heard of it, but I haven't done it.
Okay.
Okay. This was that first of all. So,
okay, so no worries. So we're going to go through some slides that I have. I might be asking some questions. We have a little activity at the end to start helping you generate questions. But an informational interview is, well, actually, let me talk about the agenda first. I'm going to talk about what it is, why they're important, how to find someone, how to prepare and conduct your interview, and how to follow up. So basically an informational interview is an interview that involves a conversation with a professional about their job, their organization, their industry, or their career path. You can discuss challenges, opportunities, and advice. So, you know, there's lots of different types of questions you could ask. And the interview is conducted by you. So the student prepares questions, reaches out to find a common time to meet. Since you're doing this in the safe space in the Student of Color Mentor Program, people are going to be expecting to hear from you. So, so there'll be a little bit less probably anxiety than just like going to LinkedIn and finding somebody to do an informational interview with. But we want you to get to that point where you're comfortable doing that as well. Any questions about that? Okay, how does the informational interview differ from an interview? An informational interview, you're gathering information, you ask the questions and lead the interview, and you're seeking advice. An interview is where you're actively seeking a job. The interviewer at the company asks the questions and leads the interview. And this interview for a job helps you and the employer decide if you're a right fit. Why is it important? So it's important because it allows you to practice. It allows you to practice your communication skills. It allows you to practice your interviewing skills. In this capacity, the Student of Color mentor program allows you to even practice informational interviews, because I just talked to the mentors and I suggested that they give you feedback, that they help you reflect on the informational interviewing experience. And out in the real world, you're not going to have that opportunity. So even with these mentors, it's all practice. So you'll be getting some feedback. It expands your network. Have any of you started a LinkedIn profile yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something that we critique at the Career Center. You want to make sure that it's a good comprehensive profile. And you'll be able to connect with these mentors and build your network through the link, your LinkedIn. You might gain insider knowledge if you happen to do an informational interview with somebody that you think is kind of cool. Then that provides you the opportunity to get information about the actual organization from somebody who works there, as opposed to like bystanders. And also you'll be receiving advice which is why. So all of those reasons really make this important. Finding someone to interview. So right now we're really focusing on the Student of Color Mentor program, where you'll find people to interview. But once you're ready to kind of branch out from that, you can use your LinkedIn to identify people. LinkedIn is so versatile. It not only allows you to keep track of your mentors and your network, but it also has jobs posted. You can search for jobs. You can also use something called the alumni search tool that allows you to really, like, you could look at like Hartford, Connecticut, graphic, if you want to do like graphic design or film, you can look at film companies. And then it'll share with you the alumni who are working in those companies. So it gives you can get very, very specific information. It's a great resource. And then we have the Husky Mentor Network, which you'll be using as part of this Student of Color program. And you can reach out to more mentors than just in the program. And we'll be explaining that in the next few weeks. So how to request an interview. We want to make sure you're using formal business type communication. We don't want you to use texting language or shortened words or very informal emails. There are several documents about informational interviewing in Husky CT. They're very short. I would encourage you to read those while you're trying to develop your outreach. So you're going to want to say, dear first name and last name. Share a little bit about yourself. I'm a senior digital media and design major at the Stanford campus, and this is why I'm writing. So make that connection to the person you're writing to. They have the similar major. They're in a job that you're interested in. You want to learn more about that company. They have a similar ethnic background to you, or they speak a similar language, and you want to find out how they use that in their career. So try to be somewhat specific on that. Specify the time frame. I'm hoping that we can meet in the next couple of weeks. When are you available? And I'll set up a virtual, would you like to meet in person or would you prefer virtually? And then how should they reach you and follow up with you? And then you want to sign, sincerely or best or something like that in your name. Does anyone have any questions on that? I would encourage you to, we have some sample outreach letters on Husky CT. Okay. Preparing questions. So what are your goals for the interview? Why are you interviewing this person? Are you looking to learn about a specific company, job, or career fields? Are you strategically building your network? Connecting with alumni and professionals who have similar backgrounds to seek advice? Are you moving to another part of the country? For the Student of Color Mentor Program, it's your goals will probably be a little bit more specific because there's a reason that this program is piloting, but you want to just kind of keep that in mind as you're developing questions. And then prepare questions. Be intentional about what you want to learn. So, think about those questions instead of just, writing, just kind of random questions. If there's certain, Andy, you mentioned several different technologies and whatnot. If you want to find out, what of those technologies are used in this particular company, you could be as specific as that, or you can be more general. Ask questions that connect the person to you. I see that you were a digital media and design major, or I see that you were a communication major, but you're doing this work that I'm very interested in learning more about. Use open-ended questions. You want to avoid yes and no. You don't want to ask questions where somebody's going to say, like if you just ask, do you use Photoshop? They could just say yes. You could say, do you use Photoshop in your role, and how is it integrated into the work that you do? So then they have to give you more information. And I just gave an example, do you like your job? Yes, I do. Can you tell me about the parts of your job that you enjoy the most? So then that's going to get me talking and excited about what I really like. Any questions on, we're going to develop some questions at the end of this session. So conducting your interview, remember you're in the driver's seat. So the informational interview is being conducted by you. So you should come prepared with your questions, and you can bring in a sheet of paper that has all of your questions. You don't have to memorize them. You can have a portfolio, or if you're virtual, you just have them, sitting next to you at your desk. I would encourage you to come prepared with a resume in case you're asked for it. They might want to see your background, what you've done over the past few years. So even though it's not a job interview, it's always important to have your resume. And if you haven't had your resume critiqued or updated with our office, we are open over the summer. So you can certainly reach out to through Handshake to have your resume critiqued. Be prepared to ask questions. Even though you're running the interview, they're probably going to ask you questions as well. So make sure that you're just in that frame of mind where if they ask you some questions, you're prepared to answer them. Be enthusiastic, be actively engaged. If you are doing a virtual interview, I would definitely put your camera on, unless there's a real reason why you can't. And then if there is, I would let the person know why you're not turning on your camera. But for a one-on-one informational interview that you're requesting, I would definitely try to be present in that way as well. Don't worry if there's silences. If you're asking a question and you need to redirect, or if they're thinking about it, you don't have to fill silence with words or to further explain yourself. And then ask for contact information, or in person a business card. You already obviously have some contact information, but you can ask, is the email that I've been sending you information the best email for you? Or is there another way for me to get in touch with you? And then ask them to, if they wouldn't mind linking with you on LinkedIn. And whenever you ask somebody to link with you on LinkedIn, you want to mention where you met them. You don't want to just send me a blank request without any information. So if you wanted to link with me, which I'm happy that you all do, but I'll only accept it if you send me a LinkedIn request and say, Nancy, thanks so much for the presentation. I learned a lot. With this SOC mentor program, would you mind connecting with me on LinkedIn? Absolutely, I'd be doing. If you just send a blank, generic one, I'm not going to accept that. So if you want to practice with me, and if you want to send me a LinkedIn connection, I'm happy to receive that. Following up. So sending an email thank you note again, formally through email within 48 hours. Include specifics of the conversation, something that excited you, something you were happy to learn. It doesn't have to be paragraphs. It can be, two relatively short paragraphs. And then reflect on your informational interview. How did it go? What are some next steps? And that's a good question to ask. Is there anyone else that you would recommend based on what you know about me now that I talked to? Do you have any suggestions on next steps as I pursue this particular career? And then try to stay in touch with them, share professional updates and relevant news stories. Let them know when something, happens in your career or, in your at UConn. So you can, connect with them on a regular basis. Any questions on that? Oops, that was not supposed to be on here. I'm actually on the wrong, let's hold on one second. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So now we're going to do a little activity. I was going to have you break up into groups of 2, but with 3 people, I think we can do this all together with me and Omar as well. What I want you to do is develop 2 or 3 questions for each other. So you all know your DMD students. I think there's 2 seniors. Jennifer's a sophomore, I think. Was that right?
I don't know if I'm like between a junior or senior or not. Like already have like 100 credits, but
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, you can also prepare informational interviews for peers. So, so think about what you might want to ask each other in an informational interview, because you've all taken, you might have taken similar courses, you might not have. So you can ask about courses, you can ask about what each of your future goals are. You can ask about different technologies you use. So think about, what I just shared with you about developing questions and take a few minutes, maybe until like 5:35 to develop like 3 questions each. And then we'll just kind of share some of those questions. And I'll have 2 people do an interview, and then the 3rd person can give some feedback. And we can just kind of do some practice that way. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That sounds fine with me.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so go ahead and spend a few minutes to come up with those questions. And if you have questions, just let me know. Why don't we take about another 30 seconds or so? Okay, and just as a reminder, doing informational interviews and just even being part of this program and putting yourself out there, you should all kind of congratulate yourselves, because you saw this opportunity as, as a chance to really help you with your career moving forward and help make connections with people who, have similar backgrounds to you. And it's not always easy. So you might be putting yourself out of your comfort zone, even just being part of this program and or doing an informational interview. And putting yourself out of your comfort zone is something that's going to help you grow. You might be uncomfortable, but ultimately it's going to help you improve skills. It's going to help you grow and, become successful. So with that said, would anybody volunteer to be the first interviewer who's going to ask the questions?
I'll do it, I guess.
Who was that? I didn't see.
Andy.
Andy? Okay.
Yeah.
And who?
I think I
Thanks,
did it
Andy.
right.
And who will Andy interview, Manuel or Jennifer? Which one of you wants to volunteer?
I
I
guess
can
I'll
go.
go. Oh, sorry. Oh,
I mean,
Okay, we'll do Andy will interview Jennifer.
okay.
And then Emmanuel, your job is to kind of observe and provide some feedback at the end for Andy, around his questions and that type of thing. Sound good?
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. So, Andy, you can go ahead and start asking Jennifer's, ask her like 2 questions.
Okay. Well, hi, Jennifer. I know that you are a generalist in DMD. Um, what concentration are you most interested in?
I'm most interested in business strategies.
And what programs or technologies have you used that you feel comfortable with, strong using? And what are your weak ones? What are you weak at, or can use improvement on?
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't hear. It was like the connection. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again?
Oh, I was wondering what technologies have you used that you feel comfortable with or strong at, and what are some that you feel that you can improve on or improve with?
Oh, so I started, obviously like the computer, obviously I've used in Adobe photo suite, but like one of the challenges I kind of had was Premiere Pro. It's kind of difficult for me, but I think I can start improving it by like, practicing making videos and try to make it like good. Also illustrate Adobe Photoshop. I know there's like a little timeline to make like small like GIFs and little like stop motion. So I just want to learn how to do that. So it was kind of challenging for me at first, but I still want to improve that during the summer.
Great.
Great. Thank you both. Emmanuel, what did you see?
The questions honestly they were good. I actually the last one was one of my questions as well. I wrote down. Um, but the first one I feel like how could I probably add a bit more because it's good to ask what they're doing, but I feel there's a bit of lack of being more descriptive of like with what she liked to do after that. Maybe what pushed you to get into that field or make it so you can get more of a connection with a person.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a true yes and no question, Andy, but you might have been able to phrase it, what constant, I know that you're a generalist right now, but what concentration are you considering pursuing and why, or what do you like about that, or something to give the person the opportunity to speak a little bit more.
I definitely felt that way after I asked it and she gave me a response.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a one word. This isn't wrong.
Yeah, and that's why we do the practice. And even when you're doing this with the mentors in this program, it's all practice. So don't feel like you have to be perfect, or anything like that. So that's why we're all having you do that. Okay, who wants to ask the questions now, Emmanuel or Jennifer?
I can go.
Okay, so you can ask Emmanuel, and then Andy will be the observer.
Okay. Um, Hi, Emmanuel. So one question I have, the first question, what skills did you develop during throughout the whole DMD program?
Um, the skills I developed is so I first started off with the Adobe Suite. So within the Adobe Suite, I started with Premiere Pro, and after that, eventually I moved on to After Effects. Um, they honestly, the first time I started, of course, you would think like, oh, it's great, but I feel like I wasn't doing enough. I was just like, in the beginning, I really felt like I was just doing it just for the grade, but now I was like, no, I gotta do more than that and actually make it way more than it should be, not just for the grade, just like more for building a portfolio and something someone will be like, hey, I can put this on the screen, happy you watch this. So after that, now I'm currently working with Cinema 4D and Figma.
Alright, that's really nice. And my second question is, if you did an internship during the summer, did you have any challenges that you can improve?
Um, I'll say for the current internship I'm in right now, um, I'll say I mean personally, I feel like since I do so much and I try to push myself to do more, it feels like I'm because I get my work done fast. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like honestly I like because I'm so focused onto my work. I finish my work really fast, so I'm able to move on to the next thing. So yeah, so that's why during my internship I was able to finish like two projects now, and I'm on my third one right now. So
That's good.
thank you.
Great. Thank you both. Andy, any feedback?
No, I think they were good questions. I was listening to her questions and I was thinking about my own, how I would have answered those questions. And I think I need to start paying attention to what I'm doing so I could answer those questions, but they were good questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
I think, thinking about, how you might answer those in a informational interview if you're asked, or, when you get to the point of, interviewing for an internship or a job. So great. So now we have Emmanuel interviewing Andy and Jennifer observing.
Okay. Um. So hey Andy, so what made you choose DMD, and do you like it so far?
Um, well, okay, so I'll start off with the last part. I do like it so far. I chose it because it's something that I've always wanted to do. I come from a technical background. I've always wanted to. I always play with computers. But the real issue is that I like to solve problems. You give me a problem and I'll waste the whole day trying to figure it out. But solving problems in the tech field just didn't do it for me. It just was, it's more so for other people, and then the complaints is more so. I just felt that the opportunity to be able to create something, no matter what, I'll probably like it. And I know that it's subjective. So if I make it and someone else doesn't like it, as long as I know I put my best foot forward and I created it. So it's really just the creative aspect of solving problems. Being creative to solve problems is what drew me to it.
That's really cool.
Hmm.
All right, the next question is, what is one of your most difficult challenges that you faced as of creative or graphic designer?
Uh, I have two, and they're probably the same, but I have two. I think it's around planning. I think is the overall. I think if I planned a little bit better, I'm one of those people that I'll make something and I'm never really done with it. So I'll continue tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it until somebody says, "All right, it's stop. You have to stop." So I think if I came up with an idea of where I want to stop and just said, "That's it. I'm gonna put the pencil down, timer's off, and that's it. And what I have is what I have." Almost, I probably need to work on that.
Okay. I just realized that I was not sharing my screen and I apologize. I'll make sure that, well, Andy, you already have this presentation. I mean, Omar, you already have this presentation, right? So if you can share it with the students so they can see the slides, that would be awesome. So my apologies about that. Jennifer, any feedback for Emmanuel?
I think he asked it like really nicely. It gave Andy to say the first question, like he actually gave a story plot about like why he wanted to go into that career, and that was actually really cool, and I can understand like what he goes through um to a technical background. And yeah, I liked how he explained it, like really nice.
Yeah, great. And one of the things at the Center for Career Development, we have practice interviews that you can do. So you can learn about the storytelling because that's actually a strategy when you answer, and I'm kind of flipping over to job interviews, but when you're answering interview questions. But I thought you all did really well. The only additional feedback I would give you, and this is a little bit different because you're all peers, is when you're talking to the mentors, I would definitely encourage you to, um, you know, not put them on the spot about like, what could you improve? You can ask questions about like what are some challenges you've encountered in your career path and that type of thing. But I would try to stay away from like, what could you improve or do better? Like another question that I might have thrown out to you all is, these are my electives I've taken so far. Have you taken anything different? And can you tell me about that elective? So again, you're trying to learn something from your peer that's going to help you make a choice about something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I actually didn't add the extra part of saying how did you overcome it, or how did you overcome it? Yeah, I forgot
Yeah,
about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay. So, okay, well, hopefully that was helpful in just having you start coming up with questions and, just asking the questions and that type of thing. And, like I said, with your mentors in this program, it's all practice. So, you're in a safe space. So I just wanted to give you an overview of the Center for Career Development and the resources that we have. And now that you can actually see the screen, it'll be a little bit easier. But we can help you if, none of you sound like you want to change your major, but if you're talking to other people who are exploring majors or want to change, we can do that. We also help with exploring career options. So you're all in DMD, but you might end up in very different places. So if you're not sure what that space is for you and you're looking for a job next year or for an internship next summer, we can help you kind of figure that out. Like I said earlier, if you haven't had a resume critique but through the Center for Career Development, I would definitely, being in this program, you want to keep your resume up and professional. And even if you got it critiqued as a freshman during your FYE class, I would definitely encourage you to schedule an appointment for that. We can also review cover letters. We do have practice interviews that I mentioned. If you're looking for an internship or co-op, or when you're looking for a job, we can help you with all of those things. Graduate school preparation, so if you're going to graduate school, and then LinkedIn consultation. So if you have a LinkedIn, you've started it, and you want us to take a look at it to give you professional feedback, I would definitely recommend you do that. Our office is a very safe space. We have an office, physical office in Stamford. And right now we're doing virtual appointments only until the beginning of the semester. So you could see our Stamford staff, or you potentially could see someone who works in stores as well. But in the fall, we will have both. We'll have in-person options as well as virtual options. We also have networking events at both campuses. We have career fairs at both campuses and virtual, and now our networking events, some of them are virtual. This is more at stores where we have professional portraits, professional pictures taken, and on-campus interviews. And this one is more particular for stores as well. So that is the end of the presentation. I want to see if you have any questions about anything that I talked about, any concerns, want to know more about resources or anything like that.
I have no direct questions, but I am going to definitely, there's a lot of things up there that you guys offer. I'm definitely going to reach out to the Career Center. I don't even know what I was going to say, like LinkedIn, I have it. I've had it for probably years, but I don't know what I'm doing on that thing. I never use it. I just set it. Probably got like 3 people that I've connected with, and that's it. The resume. So I'll be speaking to or making an appointment with the Career Center.
Awesome. Let me show you. I'm going to share my screen one more time. And these are all things that, you shouldn't have to feel that you shouldn't need this type of help or any. I mean, these are all things that all students really need some assistance with. So, whatever you need help with, you're new at all of this. So don't be shy. Don't feel, some students feel overwhelmed or that, they don't know questions to ask. But this is our website. And if you go to Handshake, or actually schedule an appointment, it'll take you to Handshake, and that's how you can schedule an appointment. Can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Appointments are scheduled through Handshake.
Yep. So you can go to schedule an appointment, and then it'll take you to Handshake, and it'll give you all of our available times. And then, I would just look through, we have all these affinity communities. So if you identify with any of these communities, you can click on them. And then you can follow the community and decide how often you want to get emails with updates. So if we ever have new featured articles that associate with this is first gen, or we have success stories. So if you want to learn about, your peers and how successful they are, we have resources that might be helpful for you, both kind of outside of UConn as well as at UConn, and then professional organizations that relate to these. And then the others are career communities. So, you might want to look at the arts, media, and communication career community. And again, you can follow this community, and then we update this every couple of weeks. So there's new material, new information, new featured articles. We have featured jobs in the career communities. So you can see if there's any jobs, and then you can click here and you're going to go to Handshake, where we post companies post hundreds of jobs every month, really, and internships. We also have events that you may find interesting. So we have our featured events. And then these are some mentors in the Husky Mentor Network. So here's a director of brand content and social media at Rheology Holding Corporation, an assistant buyer, and someone who does programming and events for American Marketing Association. So this is just really a great resource to provide you with additional information. So if you haven't used our website, I would just go and just start looking at it and making appointments, or just seeing what we offer.
And Really quick, I just want to add as a doctoral student, so much of what Nancy spoke about will help you if you do wish to pursue a doctoral degree or even a master's for that matter. What was recommended to me prior, like a year prior to even applying, was to communicate and reach out to professors, because in a doctoral program, it's very much like a partnership that you're building, a relationship that you're building in so many capacities, not just a doctoral program, but think about it. It's like 3 to 5 years. So you really want to make sure that you jive well with this researcher and that it's a good fit. So kind of just to further emphasize Nancy's points, like this will not only will it assist you now, but like for years to come. So definitely make good use of it. And as a doctoral student, I'm here as a resource for you as well. So yeah, awesome stuff, Nancy.
Great. Any other questions? Well, it was great to meet the three of you. I will put my name in the my contact information in the chat. So if you want to reach out to me directly, I'm more than happy to do that. And like I said, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, just put a specific message in there, and I'm happy to connect with you and look forward to continuing to work with you as part of this program. So thank you.
Thank you.
Too.
Thank you.
Of course. You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nancy. I appreciate it. And thank you to Andy, Emmanuel, and Jennifer for joining us today as well.
Thank you also, Omar.
I think we're officially done this time, so you won't be getting another pesky email from me.
Okay, no problem.
Awesome. Enjoy your evening, everybody. Thank you.
You too.
You too.